Yep, you're more than welcome.
We're like super raw and organic tonight.
What's that mean?
We don't. Are we on?
Yeah, we're on.
Because we don't know what we just went live without knowing exactly what we're gonna.
Yeah, it's kosher.
So everybody's just
kosher
barely
night.
showing up, so we're just.
So it's all about just warm human connection. So we're just sitting in a circle, ready to talk and share. Usually when we've done this, we've asked questions. I could pull that up. We're just. That's how we're gonna start this out. But
Well, how's everybody been doing since we saw you last? Let's all just catch up for a second.
Well,
Any things you can say to the whole world?
we're moving to Ogden. So
Really?
That's the exciting news.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we'd probably put in an offer tomorrow. That's house in Ogden, and
That's exciting. What part of Ogden?
that way.
Down in Ogden,
Not that far, like on Jefferson.
On Jefferson.
and,
Right. So Jefferson 25th area.
yeah, 20 something.
That's nice little. My buddy just ready to move to 27th and right there. 27th and maybe even Jefferson.
What? Where though?
I don't know if I know this one.
This is just like these people I want to know.
Oh, Millie! Hey, girl. You so excited that we have visitors? So what's everybody else been up to? Link, you went out. You've been on journeys.
Yeah.
You went out to the West Coast.
Ish. Made it out to Mount Hood and camped out there for a few days and made it into Portland for a few hours one day. But it was probably the best Oregon trip I've had because I didn't go to Portland for a couple hours.
This was your least Portland, Oregon experience?
Yeah, well, a couple Southern Ashland cutscenes.
Nice to have you here, Alex. We're just barely getting started. Nice. Where'd you get the Hawaiian lion?
Oh, from the luau. It was like in Barker Park.
Oh, nice. Didn't even know what was going on. Let me turn right here. So we're just barely deciding what we want to do. Ash was just kind of going over what we normally do on COZSNUG.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of cool for us to show you guys that Ash and I have put together a new presentation.
Yeah.
A little presentation that we went and we said, hey, let's go up to the highest house on the hill up here and go pitch them. And so we stood there at the door and pitched this sweet little Mormon lady who was way in over her head with her house. Like, you could tell they had no furniture in there. A bunch of kids running around. They're in one of the biggest houses on the hill. And she's like, I love every single thing you guys are doing, like, so much, but we're just overextended on this house and I can't give you anything. Kind of a thing.
At least it worked.
It was, she gave us a very favorable response. We had one single experience with it. But we could show this to everybody. We could, if everybody wants to see it, or we can just let it run around. And as we're actually having the conversation.
You could just show off a couple of the pages of it because it shows like our vision and it goes. There's nothing. There's going that.
It almost feels like a.
You guys need another pillow? That's like a big, long.
Oh, I'm so comfy.
Okay.
It's empowering empathy. It's a global inclusivity initiative cultivating connection, connecting hearts and transforming lives. And our vision is to create a world that's more compassionate, accepting, and fulfilling for everybody. Why? Because we believe everyone deserves to enjoy living. And we enjoy living most when we're collaborating. We can connect with others in a meaningful way. Blah, 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 and the whole presentation. I don't want to go through the whole entire thing right now, but it's our, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Now, does it make sense to like support a cause like this? We need all the help we can get.
Do a music video.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah,
That was a standalone video right there.
It is.
It is, yeah.
A singogram. Put that to a song.
And sing it, yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Kelly, you got some little background music for it?
I could probably come up with something. Yeah. Something probably mellow instead of amped up like on the 22nd. So
Right? Yeah, like a mellow, like a
And we could
mellow set.
Make you a firefly costume. Yeah.
Yes, so much yes. Alex, Ashton, can we all do that for sure? You guys down for dressing up like ladybugs, love bugs, fireflies?
Oh no, this is just for you.
Oh, only me?
You know, that's the video right there. Right? If you want to do more poppy things, well, then those need to be their own videos too. Or another night.
Right, right.
Maybe
used to have
once
that
a month
question
night
there.
on Wednesday.
Right.
Tuesdays.
I like those questions.
Do you want to find one for us, Alex? That seems interesting to you that we can roll through.
This is Gilbert back.
For anybody who hasn't
Gilbert.
joined before on about COZSNUG, why don't we explain COZSNUG real quick? Does anybody want to?
Yeah. COZSNUG means to be, well, it's a word.
Make
To make
oneself.
oneself cozy towards others. And the idea is to be, in a group space and feeling like you can be your authentic self and completely, be relaxed and have no fear in a group like this.
Like you belong.
Yeah, like we all belong and deserve.
All right.
Yes, you do belong.
Yeah.
And here, we want to make sure everyone feels that.
What is that?
Deserve to belong.
That doesn't mean we're here to trauma dump.
Commiserate.
Like, you're right. There's times and places for those kinds of things, and sharing venom is not necessarily something that is on the empathy line. And letting people do that is also something that maybe we should be better at saying, hey, these are things that are not going to assist you in finding people to help you with things because nobody wants to be around.
That's a
Right,
really good
right,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, really good point.
Because and a lot of that is complaining when we do that.
Well, I mean, a lot of it, I mean, sometimes it's not even complaining. Sometimes it's just being stuck in those hard places of the past and just regurgitating the experience. And
This
reliving
is
it.
I want to talk about this for 1 second because it's so. In my experience in life, I have a bunch of people like me that I see out there who are just like, nah, selfish. Just get your.
like me.
Right. No, that's just how I live my life. I realized very clearly, looking how we mature, and become more aware of how selfish everything really is. Now, I also have tried to, and more recently been able to actually find ways to find real beautiful equanimity with people who have been highly, highly empathetic from the time they were little. Like this is like a natural skill for them. And what I have seen is that we're so polarized and living in duality, living in like this or that, right or wrong, just it has to be this way or that way. Only two options that the ambitious are putting way too much, going way too fast in traffic, causing all the accidents and a lot of accidents and not aware of their impact. But there's all these empathetic people also who are saying things like, and this is the predominant thing I've heard, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I think it deserves conversation because what is empathy? If I'm empathetic and I say, but because because I'm taking on everybody else's stuff, now I need to protect myself. And now we have our primary way that we focus is protecting ourselves from the external world instead of receiving the external world. So am I even being empathetic? I can say I'm an empath, but if I'm not being empathetic right then, what does it matter? And so no matter where we are, I love the idea that we talk more about what it means to actually be empathetic. Because to me, it just puts me in a place of seeing my equality with everybody instantaneously. It puts me in an inclusive headspace instead of exclusively thinking that people are going to come around to my special way of seeing things. Thus the need to try to convince people of things and try to win them over for our ideas.
Ego thing.
The student.
The ego thing, right. Yeah, trying to actually engage our student inside to be a receiver instead of us just calling ourselves a teacher or a healer or anything and being mostly resistant to what is the unique experience of others. So getting together like this is just our opportunity to get together and, hey, let's have the conversation that everybody's story matters. Whatever is on your mind, if you want to say it, well, then we want to hear it. That's what this is all about. It's like, we truly want to receive each other, because this is how we add to our lives, is by not calling or not having a fear of the full receiving of somebody else's uniqueness.
It's a funny paradox, right? I think you bring up a good point. Like, being empathic, or being in a safe empathic space doesn't mean trauma dump, doesn't mean complain. But like, feeling safe to like express oneself, that's a tricky thing.
Vulnerably, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like where does the line get drawn? Because at some point empathy is enabling. And it's like, oh, we'll hear this one person's sad story. You can only do that for so long, because then it's not empathy. Then it's like...
Then it's an emotional anchor that grounds everything around it.
Yeah, so like...
Exactly, yeah.
There is,
Fixed idea, yeah.
so like, how can we help each other to not do that?
That's what I'm saying. We gotta be more on top of when people start to get into that space. We gotta, hey, is this the energy you want to proliferate?
And when you're among your friends, I want anybody to say, if they're ever around me and you're like, hey Ken, that doesn't seem like a very like empathetic thing to be doing. I mean, if you're my friend, I want that information. That's because I'm trying to actually make my life increasingly, constantly better.
Well, I mean, it's like constructive empathy is more about the do's than the don'ts too. Like we're not trying to say don't, the nots and the don'ts and the whatever.
No, because there's nothing wrong.
Those
with any-
aren't constructive.
Right.
Yeah, the presumptuous shoulds and
Need
everything
to,
else.
shoulds.
It's like
How do we
create, how do we build from what people are putting in, you know, how do we help the human process? Because if it's just sitting there listening to somebody echo chamber themselves and there's not some feedback, then they're just echo chambering everybody into that same energy, that same space.
It's kind of like when a person is drowning, you know?
Yeah,
If everybody
exactly.
swims up to that drowning person to try and help them, they're gonna pull people in.
Yeah, if they don't quit flailing, you're all screwed.
Actually, the way you are supposed to help a person who's drowning is you swim near them
And
call
talk.
out to them,
Yeah.
and then you like coax them over to
Right,
shore.
right.
They're gonna panic because they're gonna be like, "No, come and help me, please!" And just have to coax them over. So it's kind of that same way.
By the time they get done kicking and struggling and getting to you, they can stand up.
Yeah.
At least you.
Clever about it.
Hopefully.
I like what you said about how too much empathy is enabling. I think that's right on the...
Well, it's not even empathy at that point.
Yeah, true.
No, that point,
What could
that
have
might
started
be
out
too-
as
too timidity,
empathy. Yeah.
or
Well, and without feedback, yes, you can be enabling, just
Yeah.
allowing and
Yeah.
absorbing. But if you can offer your own feedback, like this is, talk about I made it through this situation. I mean, I've learned not to tell people what to do ever, but share your own personal experience. And this is what worked for me, and then people still have their.
Wait a minute, you
they
told
can
me a
still
lot of things to
choose.
do while we were cleaning that house today. You were the boss, clearly.
Well, I mean, like in your everyday. Well, that is in your everyday life. I did.
I mean, there's a time and a place for methodology.
Well, I wanted you to be my boss. Trust me, I was all in for it.
Efficiency.
It all worked.
Yeah, efficiency and empathy don't often get along
Right?
well. They can, they could better, but they're not really naturally harmonic, I feel like. Often.
Yeah, well, we're still learning patience and stuff, right?
There's an element of social responsibility to come to these kinds of circles, recognizing like, oh, this is a place to be vulnerable and safe, but also a place to do work.
Yeah.
Not a place where, hey, everyone do work on me, but where it's like,
Not turn it into an
But it
ego
could
trip.
be like that if you wanted it to be. If you didn't feel like you brought enough batteries, you're sitting here with us, and you felt like you're running on 2%, and you said, "Hey guys, all I want to do tonight is just feel like I'm getting all filled up by your love, and I want to be in the middle, and all you guys hug me for an hour." You know, we do that.
Yeah, but also don't do that every week.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, how do you actually be inclusive of everybody that's wanting to be there? But I just thought of something. I'll wait to share it until either later on or. It's just, how do we approach each other? Period. Am I going to be a relatable thing right now, or a somewhat unrelatable thing? And so when I really focus all my questions on my self-introspection of like, hey, what do I really want here? Why am I doing this? Why do we get together doing this? I know what my why is, definitively, because we've been writing about it for a long time now, and we know precisely the why. Because we believe everybody deserves to enjoy living, and most of the planet doesn't believe it yet. And so we just want to keep saying it, because the more we say it, the more people start to believe it. Oh, maybe even me. What if I deserve to really enjoy my next full hour? Whoa, could I really honor that to myself? Could I really fully enjoy every single part of my next hour? When I started playing around with this, my mind was blown. Like, wow, you don't have to suffer through every damn day, no matter how much trauma you've been through. We've all been through trauma. If you're here right now on this planet, it's because you got bandwidth and you're a badass. And you got a really cool story that we want to hear about. And so you don't need to have fear. We want you to get to the point where you have empowered your own empathy, because we want the data out of your life. We want to know how you live uniquely to all the rest of us with your unique belief system, that religion of one single, your own head. But how do I get that? Because I just see you as part of me. And so if you're part of me, then why wouldn't I want to receive you instead of resist you? We've been violent in society for a long time, and it's kind of like we've been like in a global junior high. It's kind of embarrassing.
Well, we still are. It's just shifted from aggressive to passive aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
still,
So we
it's
made
still
it-
technically
we've
a
made-
form of violence.
And we've made ourselves some improvements, so
Oh yeah, yeah.
awesome.
Even that's
we're a little bit less
improving,
violent as we
but-
used to be.
Yeah.
We don't have Genghis Khan running around anymore, getting away with what he was getting away with.
Instead, we just have shootings and.
It's been distributed amongst people.
It's
Yeah,
and
one
it
force.
distributed, fractaled right out.
Decentralize the
Social
violence.
media
Yeah,
We decentralized the violence. And now we're mitigating all that.
Well, the joy of decentralized violence is you only have to convince a person not to do a thing instead of a whole army.
Right.
This is a hard question. Is we able as a species to get rid of violence? Can we extricate violence from our evolutionary process?
I love that you're asking.
As
Every
being-
breath you take kills something. Like literally, you're breathing in microbes right now. Those die to keep you alive.
Yeah,
So
so where's the
sometimes
line?
it's-
So
Once you're
arguably
violence
that
is
by
done.
definition could be considered some form of violence now.
Violence, yeah. It's-
But now let's attach it to
Same with
life,
everything we eat.
the life experience. If I attach it to my willpower, the potential of gaining actual willpower, is that possible? That I can gain willpower to be in a place where I believe that I can make choices in my day, and those choices like make magical things happen. Like I intentionally manifest things in front of me.
I would say to some degree. I would say that a lot of the act of manifesting has to have that physical act behind it, to the action of whatever, just some kind of physical behavior that manifests the idea that you want to manifest into the physical. In my own experience, I've done that, where I've had ideas that I wanted to manifest, and I just continued to think about it and try to get the willpower. But nothing came of it until I decided to, all right, well, what are ways that I can take this and put it into the physical reality?
Yes.
And then things started to happen when I'm
Exactly.
like, okay, well, if I
You
do
have the
this
clarity.
this way, and then it just kind of has just snowballed over the years. So, like, I would say yes, but that there has to be, since we are of the world but not of it, we do have to participate in the
Physicality.
the physicality, the whatever rules or laws or whatever you call them that the universe has, we still have to operate within that, is my perception. And so I do really think that we can get willpower, but it's kind of essentially futile if we don't put any action behind that will.
Well, you will be disinclined to continue the effort if there's not action, because
You wouldn't do it.
because you don't see the
There's
results.
no,
and so
there's no more inspiration because you've met deadness.
Yeah.
Deadness meets, hey, I'm gonna take my awareness elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a
What's
good way
your,
to put it.
your John Handy about making money? That's fitting.
Oh,
Say that.
oh, Jack Handy's, it's easy to sit there and say you want more money. And I guess that's what I like about it. It's easy. Just sitting there, rocking back and forth, wanting that money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's a good parallel, yeah.
So then, on the contrast, if I want to accomplish something today so much that I just feel it so emotional right now and just like bring it to myself so much today, in my experience, I'm going to find that thing that I want with massive amounts of efficiency and effectiveness and what it feels to be like, wow, that was effortless. How did it happen like that? Why did it feel so effortless? There was no efforting to be done. What? And so in the
Because
process,
the mental framework was already there. Because your thoughts create your beliefs determine your emotions, and your emotions are the energy that make things happen.
right? Yeah, exactly.
So if you are present and conscious about the thoughts that you are entertaining, that will create or give you the ability to create the beliefs that will spawn the emotional responses or actions or motivations to do the next step and actually start to physically, present to the world.
Right. I don't want us to get off of the whole conversation of like, hey, what is this? Can we get rid of violence? Is this a possible thing that we can get rid of violence? Well,
If you leave it as broad as
let's
possible.
back up just a tiny little bit and just like take a look at what our understanding of world history is. It's different for every single person. Well, world history, what your own personal history. Every single person has a different history. So we don't have any world history that's pertaining to every single body that isn't malleable and changeable right now based on what everybody's doing right this very, very second. So whatever I'm thinking right now can be affecting the whole future and the whole past because it's all happening right here in the now. And so
The only global ideas and thoughts, and especially records that we have, are basically institutional narratives.
that's exactly right.
They're not.
Yes.
They're not histories.
No, it's an institutional narrative. It's an art piece.
Yeah.
It's an art project of sorts because all the words that came out were just articulation. Somebody said, hey, here's what I want to say, it matters. And so that's all we're doing is just saying, hey, we're going to have conversations and we're not saying anybody's better than anybody else here. We're just saying everybody's got unique experience and there's no rhyme or reason to how we do this.
What?
Just ask each other questions to empower our empathy because we haven't been doing that collectively yet.
Well, there are projects, textbooks, because they don't have bibliographies. They don't have references. They just say, we're the word now.
Right, we are. Yeah,
So that's art.
Beautiful art, right?
So to keep on the topic with Cam, perhaps we could ask him what he defines violence as, so we can try to narrow it down, because Lincoln made a good point. If we keep violence as at a broad definition, we can get rid of it. So is there a more narrow definition that you're speaking of when you ask the question?
So when I first brought it up, it was broad. What is violence, right? Like killing microbes is violence. Stepping on the soil kills billions of organisms every step, right? And like, is that inherently violent because the outcome is death? But if death is just an inherent part of life, so anything that like lends itself towards that process isn't inherently violent. It's just part of the process. Now some atrocity happens. It's like massive loss of life. We can look at it, linearly and be like, this is fucked up. But also, like, big picture, that could have been an absolutely necessary part of the process. And, like, all I have are my personal worldview is, like, I don't want to do violence. I have been a person that has done it and seen the detriment in my own life. But, so I don't want to do it anymore. But what does that mean for like it being a necessary process of nature? You know?
So could you more narrowly define and even refine your meaning to say force?
Let's see, like
That violence equates to some kind of force?
purposeful harm done to others,
With
or
or without
more or less
just-
nefarious.
I would
Yeah.
say that kind of falls into the category of force, would you say?
But force is also a necessary part, facilitates change.
I'd say the
Friction.
force is
Yeah,
necessary.
You can have passive
I would almost
aggressiveness
take your
that's very
definition
violent.
and add with or
Okay, yeah,
without
but
just
it's
cause.
not necessarily
And
violent?
that
Yeah,
determines
not necessarily right. Force is not
whether or
necessarily
not
right.
a violent act is something we call nefarious, evil, or malevolent.
So justice is
Yeah.
the component.
Yeah, because sometimes like force is necessary to preserve one's own life or preserve the lives of others. Other violent people.
But then the violent people on the other side
Yeah,
are
yeah, they think
just
the same.
protecting
So,
themselves.
so,
you know?
so maybe, force. Let's try to get away from the word force. Perhaps pushing one's will on another person, if it
Imposing, yeah.
harms them, like you've said, because you've
Hmm.
Well, even if it doesn't harm them, why would we ever push our will onto somebody?
Well, at what point does
True.
persuasion become coercion?
This is an excellent question.
That
That's
is
kind of-
very
that's kind of-
pertinent.
Yeah, it's kind of the big questions we're asking here at Empowering Empathy. How do we stop the cycle?
Exactly. I love it. This
Yeah.
is we're having the conversation. I'd like to say something about.
participation.
I'd like to. Oh, go ahead.
Or, yeah, I think you have to be a willing participant in the interaction. Because if you're being persuaded, you're there. You're allowing yourself to be persuaded or not. Coercion, you don't really have a choice. Some people are like ignorantly being coerced. They're choosing to participate in social media, they're like scrolling, whatever. But they're also getting these like downloads they're not aware of that
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
else is aware of.
Right, and that gets into the whole, ball and mess, the Kelly likes to talk about, tacit consent.
acquiescence, yeah.
Where simply saying nothing in the presence of something that is objectionable is a tacit.
Well,
tacit
it's wu wei. Yeah, in the East they call it wu wei, the power of non-action.
Paradox, because there's power in it, but there's also like
Exactly. So like everything is
Silence,
paradox
dude,
because
all
you're
is
in the middle of a
violence.
duality situation and everything is paradoxical unless you start to realize that it's really triality instead of duality.
Well, I mean,
And until you know what that other piece is, you're like, oh wait, I've only been thinking about this and that. I've only been right and wrong. I want to say something about the violence piece because in my life I've done a bunch of writing about this because I've been so violent in ways where the public didn't know me as a violent person. My whole life, I've never been like a violent person going around hitting people. I mean, in high school, I was just telling Ash or somebody the other day, I tried the whole violence thing for a minute. I tried to be a tough guy, and I cut in front of this kid in the line at school, and man, I feel bad for this. I cut in front of him and he said, if you stay in front of me, I'm gonna tell her when we get up there. And I said, if you do, then I'm gonna run your head into those metal bars right there. And he told her, and I did it. I was a sophomore in high school, and the vice principal said, why can't he? Did you have to cling his clock so hard? And it just hurt me that I hurt somebody I cut in front of. I was such a dick. I wasn't normally like that, but I tried it. My whole life, I grew up a fat guy, and I didn't feel like people looked at me with dignity. I was seen as you're one of the ones that likes to just eat a lot of food or whatever. And I always saw people looking at me with what appeared to be violent eyes, even though they weren't aware of it.
Gaslighting yourself.
And so the whole entire time I had this kind of a victim mentality. I wasn't aware of how violent I really was. I was just looking around and saying, hey, why is everybody so violent? And I have learned how to tame my inner critic. And I've learned how to become receptive instead of resistant. There's a juxtaposition to to be vibrating in a receptive way. I want all this information. I want this all. I want this. I want everybody. Here's my teacher. Every moment's instructive. Fire hose. Receive. 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 Versus, oh, cool conversation we're having. Yeah, could sit back and intellectualize. And I'm a good philosopher. I could say a lot of really powerful words that mean a lot. I'll sound smart here. Wait, I'm going to conjure up something really cool to say. That by its nature is violence. I now place it as violence inside myself because it's approaching any present moment, which is the only thing we have, and everything's already okay in the now. I promise. It is. There's no possible way that any of us can be convinced that everything in the now is not really already okay. So when I'm there and I'm in that place, hey, everything's okay, then I have surrendered my violence. I've surrendered my resistance. I've surrendered being a thing that goes around and boom, bounces off of you. But just like when you take two atoms and you try to force them together and they just repel because we're trying to force them, the second you just put them next to each other, they just connect.
But they do need specific conditions in order to do that. They don't just do that.
Exactly. So what we did was we created for ourselves a cool thing called life to be able to have some pretty cool circumstances here, right? Because this can get to the point where you can have your own heaven on earth, whatever you want to call it. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Your levels of consciousness, and my levels of consciousness, I don't want to put a number on it. My levels of consciousness have gone up by multiple numbers in the past just month. I can't say a bunch of things that I want to just be able to say just because there aren't words for it.
You don't know the words for it.
What?
You don't know the words for it.
I don't know the words for it. I'm too stupid to know
there may
words
be
for it
words
so
for
far.
it.
I don't have that art yet. But I'm very quickly accumulating more and more art inside of me because I'm devouring Kelly's appreciation for self-determination and music that folds you in. I'm just like, what? And what? And then Link's ability to, every single one of you all have these unique parts that just like, man, I'm fascinated by your life and what it adds to my life. I'm a more valuable thing just because I receive you. So now I'm not violent. I feel like an inclusive thing instead of an exclusive thing. And so when somebody says, hey, well, are we really able to get rid of the violence? I'm like, yep, I know we can because, yeah, I did. And I still have all these vestiges in here and I'll come up with it, but I know what I want to vibrate with the second it happens. If I'm violent, ooh, it hurts me. It hurts me. But I know how to have my awareness inside now. I want to be pure to myself. If I'm not pure to my own ideation of what a life is for me, whose fault is it? My violent self. The thing that hasn't tamed its inner critic yet.
I have to go because I'm late to meet with a friend, but I love you all so much.
Oh,
I'm
Alex,
glad
it was so
it's
nice to
nice
have you
Thank
here,
you for
buddy.
getting COZSNUG with me and allowing me to be COZSNUG with you.
You're so awesome. I love you. You're so good. This could take like several hours for him to get out of here, this guy. Yeah,
So could you say, could it be said that one way to get rid of violence is to be the change that we want to see?
yes. It's so simple. If you're love and light, if you're being love and light, where's violence? It's kind of doesn't, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. That there's violent parts of us out there in society right now, there's violent parts of me out there. That means that collectively we don't have all the trust yet. We have some collective trust. I have full collective trust with so many individuals now. And we're we instead of me's. There's lots of people who are gaining that skill right now by empowering their empathy. Go ahead.
You brought up willpower earlier. So what if you've eradicated violence from your life by choice, where you've done it before?
Mostly.
Right, we're all
I know the
doing-
concept now, though, really.
We're all doing our best.
Right.
Right. So what if violence that happens without your will, without your agency? Like I dropped a glass and it broke. You know, that's inherently violence. My actions cause destruction. If I stub my toe on accident, you know, like there might be something energetically happening that influenced that toe stub. That isn't just like there was a thing there. Like a bug.
Right.
When I think about things like that, you know, like being clumsy is something I've had to work on. I think it comes down to just when something like that happens, in some place you weren't being aware. You weren't bringing your foot high enough because you knew that step. You were just not expecting that step to be high enough. You were off balance when you grabbed the glass and something distracted you. You know, all these kind of tiny things that you can kind of be aware of in your body that are of like, you know, how can I be more aware in this present moment and the task at hand?
Ashton is really good at this. I watch him often doing this. We do this a lot, where this is like a common practice. Just like, hey, we're constantly pushing against our edges.
I notice all the time if I'm just, like, if I drop something, it's because I got distracted with something else while I was doing it.
It's like, oh, look at how unpresent I really was.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've noticed this more recently in my work. If I lose focus for a second, every time that something like a log fell on my ankle today, I looked away from my path for a fraction of a second, and it just like, and the thing fell, you know, or I'll trip. I noticed it in the forest the other day. If I look away for a second, I'll trip on a root. Like, I know where that root is. Subconsciously, I already knew where that root was 50 feet ago. And I just forgot because my awareness deviated. You know, and so, like, is that inherently violent? We have this relationship with our reality all the time. When we're engaged, it's not violent. When you're opting out, or you're just, like, choosing unawareness, that can be a violent act. You know, because you're opening up the opportunity for like unaware things to happen.
Right.
Like
yeah.
clumsiness.
It's passive aggressiveness towards yourself.
Yeah, like
Right.
I'm gonna choose complacency and unawareness, and it's gonna cause problems.
Yeah.
I call it the direct act of laziness.
Yeah.
It's easy to sit there and say you want more money.
Yeah.
I went down to Panama in 1998 with 4 guys. We all went down there to go scuba diving and get like treasure from Fort San Lorenzo. Pirate Henry Morgan wrecked 28 ships right there at the mouth of. And there's like all kinds of stuff that's like there. And my buddy had gone down there. He'd been there in the Navy. Well, when I was there, we got all these relics and stuff, and we're there with the caretaker guy. And he's telling us in this really broken Spanish, there's some other dialect mixed in there, about all the stories that he knew. He was this older guy of Fort San Lorenzo in Panama. This is like these walls that are like 15 feet thick and like an actual fort, like on the mouth of a river. And I learned about this whole concept that, well, everywhere, every port you ever went to, like there's like gunfire everywhere because there was so much banditry at sea. There's so many people just. So that's Henry Morgan, I guess, was trying to sail up into Panama City and steal all their gold. Well, wrecked a bunch of ships right there. But I'm thinking about this concept of everywhere on the planet, we used to have firing at the ports. I mean, when you look back on all the things that you heard about history, we become increasingly less violent the whole entire time. We have more world peace than we've ever had.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's statistically just so you can go onto multiple websites now and see that we're better off collectively than we've ever been because we've let go of more immature ways of reacting to each other and being with each other because we've gotten more collectively mature. So we went from all we knew was dog eat dog.
Line up in rows, march towards each other, and shoot. Like,
Yeah.
wait,
What?
What? Are you kidding me? It's like, hey, somebody's got to be smart enough to like go around and flank him from the left or something real quick. What?
You know what I think happened is, I think the divine right of kings fell when America caused their uprising because the USA, they made the model.
Kind of did away with it, huh?
Yeah, they made the model of how to
not have a monarch.
break free from the monarch and control yourself. And so, you know, we look at the history of that time. I think the 18th century or maybe the 19th century was the age of revolutions, because America said to the parliament in its essence, but the king because he's the executive, and broke free. And I think destroying feudalism and the divine right of kings ultimately gave way to not having a violent temperament, because prior to then it was always the king or the monarch and their privy council or their small select group of nobles that controlled everything, and it's like they wanted more land, so they would tell their nobles to get the peasantry round up and get your arms, we're going to go and invade, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
So centralization correlates with violence, to a degree.
It has.
Yes, I would
Now
say
it's
that in
gotten
a sense.
more sleuthing.
But we've kind of revolved in the sense, which is kind of funny because they called it a revolution, American Revolution. We've kind of revolved back to where centralization is the problem instead of, because from my understanding,
Centralized institutions rather than centralized like figurehead or government.
yes,
necessarily.
yes,
There's
well,
it's still fragmented centralization. There's still lots of entities that control their niche.
yeah. So one case law in my research that I found a long time ago was one that said, "He who was a subject of the king is now a citizen of the state." And so, just like you said, that was the one person, the divine monarch. Now it's divine government. It's the government that's the holder of all of the answers and stuff.
The external savior.
Yes, and so just from that and breaking free from monarchism and trying out ideas of republicanism and democracy and those things, we've kind of built the world that we're in now. And with the invention of human rights in the 40s, that's helped at least around the world, not in the U.S., but like people generally have the poorest of the poor is the richer than the richest king in the Middle Ages nowadays, if we think about it. So ultimately, our standards of living have gone up, and we've reduced violence since we got rid of kings, or the idea of the divine monarch.
Of anybody to rule over us.
Yeah,
So we
well,
started
well,
truly empowering ourselves to understand true strength instead of false empowerment.
Instead of one individual ruling over us, we consent to a group of people doing it, and that makes it easier and better because.
Oh, now we're just got a representative up there.
Well,
Yeah.
because you're now all of the anger and ire and upset is no longer being directed to a source. It's having to be divided up into many smaller sources. So that helps too.
And people love to play those games. Anybody who's involved in politics, I mean, you can just watch how they thrive on the environment.
Corporations too. Oh, we're being sued. Oh, great. Well, let's have a new name tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all a bunch of legal, it's a bunch
So-
of legal games.
So I brought up that long spiel to say I do agree and do see the evolution that you speak of, but I want to try to pinpoint it at the fall of the divine right of kings, because just from my looking at and studying and observing the past, that's kind of when despotism went like that and freedoms kind of went like that. But like I just said earlier, now it's kind of going back down to where it's like that, and despotism's starting to come back up.
Well,
So-
look how many countries ran with the framework of our Constitution to create a more independently sovereign kind of a feel of all these independence. Eventually, we get to a point where we're like, hey, what is this independence thing we've been talking about? That's why we're doing what we're doing now. We said, hey, we're too clunky to understand collectively this basic concept.
And other
It's still too
entities
clunky,
have
and it's
moved in
potential.
to the control doesn't go anywhere. Feudalism goes, a state comes in. We start relinquishing our need to rely on the state. Other entities move in.
It doesn't matter how you frame your control or your governing agencies or your institutions or your corporations or businesses or any of that crap. It's the people that are put into those positions of accountability and responsibility and their ability to hold to those principles.
Right.
That really define the ability to be holistic and empathic and inclusive.
Right, and we've lacked that vision so far collectively. I saw that stuff out of the
we
UN.
got rid of the kings, but then we have Bush, from the CIA all the way through 2 presidencies, and and it's like starting to follow this monarchic model that's got twisted everybody's heads up.
What
I would
about
say-
Meta or any streaming app that has anybody
large
fully
corporations.
engaged in this this lens to see the world.
Kind of
through.
like could be perceived as a similar kind of an entity, right, in their lives,
Yeah,
like a
who's-
governing body.
Who's running it? Who's in charge? And what are their beliefs and values?
Yeah,
Because
what's
that
actually-
matters
yeah.
more than the platform.
Well, and
Exactly.
to kind of get back on
Obviously,
to,
driving
Their
something.
intent.
yeah, to kind of get back on the topic of why I think despotism's on the
We gotta
rise
teach
is
that stuff to it,
because
otherwise it's gonna teach
uh,
itself.
one of the most renowned jurists from the 1750s, Vattel, his name's Emerita Vattel, he wrote right in his treatise that the founding fathers used that a republic is an aristocracy. So from that, all republics are aristocracies. If we go back to what Aristotle said an aristocracy is, government by the worthy. So already there's this idea that there's only worthy people that can get to that position that can do that.
The word worthy kind of messes with that a little bit, because in my world, I like the idea that I would have some little governing body down here that has our, garbage thought of every week, that's going to come and collect our garbage. I want these kinds of things in my world.
There should be basic things. Dealing with the government, there should be this small little building that does all the little shit.
Where's the
like,
public servantry in
that's-
that?
That's kind of sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off. That's kind of why I said not here in the United States, because sadly, how the Constitution's written, treaties aren't laws until the Senate or the Congress puts it into law. And so when you got human rights treaties like the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and they sign on to it and they ratify it, but when they sign on, they say, oh, Articles 1 through 24 are non-executing. That means that it doesn't matter until they put it into their own laws. Section 1 and 2 is all about self-determination. So right there, the U.S. has said, oh yeah, human rights, whatever. They don't mean anything until we put them into law. And so it's like...
Exactly. So you're saying these beautiful words, like, sorry.
But like the human rights, those are the human rights instruments. I think that's where a lot of these basic things that we all want come from, but because of the oligarchy that's been built up since the 1700s, the 1790s, they want more power and money, and you can't have power and money over a population that's doing well, because you're always going to have somebody that needs something, and instead of trying to rely on the community, everybody's been taught to rely on the state and the government. And so I really that's why I like coming to Surrender Lab and COZSNUG, is because it feels like we're all tired of that kind of a mentality, and we want to work together to build a community that benefits each other. And I think that's really cool, and that's why I'm here. I'm gonna end my
We
little,
already have that. Thank you, Kelly. Look at how much value we've already added to each other's lives. Look at you, just came and gave us your music and brought
I
in
rambled for a little bit.
a million instruments and panels to show. You've added so much value
Well,
already.
When that happens more, I'll have a way that it's just, and it's done instead of everything everywhere. So we'll get that figured out.
It was all dude, I loved all of it, and it can all just be whatever we want it to be next time, whatever.
So sorry to kind of take over, guys.
No, heartily.
No,
I feel like it's
no,
very
no,
on topic, honestly.
Spot on, because we're trying to talk about the whole concept of true strength versus the illusion of empowerment. That the world is offering the illusion of empowerment everywhere. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look. Somebody's pointing towards something external. Whenever you see that, just know from now on, they're not trying to actually help you. They don't know how. Or if they do, then shame on them. Because they're just transactionalizing their relationship with you purely.
Depending on the context.
Well, I'm saying if they knew. So,
Well,
If they
I'm
know
not
and don't
about.
tell you. If they know how to help and don't tell you, act as if they have the thing for you instead of it coming internally.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's
So you got
violence.
false empowerment. It's a violent act.
Sovereign citizen gurus did a lot of that.
That's
I know everything. You got to come through me and pay me thousands of dollars, and I'll help you get free.
right.
I ran into that the decade I was into it, and so it's kind of funny that he brings that up, because there are people that are out there that are actively trying to catch people that want to better their lives, and they just want to use them and abuse them. And
Plenty of people like
Well,
that. They just
again,
want to
it's-
leech
it's-
off of purity. They want to leech off
Yeah.
of wherever they can get whatever they want to get.
Well, again, it boils back down to intent. Like, if somebody has a product that's beneficial and useful and healing, and and they're trying to sell it to people, well, cool. But who are those people? What are they doing with that money?
Right.
You know, is this just a money catch, money sink, like a lot of these festivals have become, or are they actually trying to be about something?
Is there an actual social impact that is actually trying to have that they're trying to actually cause it?
Yeah,
trying to
because
support?
festivals are all empty, hollow drug markets. Sometimes mediocre music, sometimes it's awesome music, but the drug market and the just
It sounds like a marketplace.
Yeah, it's like
could potentially
nobody's
just be a
nobody's
marketplace.
trying
yeah.
to be about anything at those things anymore. And that comes from the top down. Like, you got to have the artists and the organizers saying, "This is what we're doing." Like Arcadia was freaking awesome, even though it was in Vegas and made me want to shoot myself. So
They had to do it. They had like a container
I
like
almost,
that.
I almost
had to-
protest drove to Alpine, Wyoming for that festival. Just to be like, this is where the real thing should have happened.
They got flooded like a month before. That's wild. That's like a container like this. Of course, it can exist in the forest, right? They've been doing rainbow gatherings for decades. Like, yeah, of course we can set up a society without money. Watch us do it, right? That's easy. But when you go to the epitome of the opposite of what Arcadia was, we're gonna put it in Vegas. That's almost like what, like, look, see, it's possible. You know,
Beautiful.
and that was
to be of the world, but
beautiful.
not of it.
in the world, but not of it. Yeah.
That's got a little bit of a. I mean, I used to say that as a really dominant Mormon missionary.
Yeah. I
So
know
it's got
I know it's a
religious
very, very
undertones
Christian
to it.
thing, but
Yeah,
I
but it
do-
has a lot
Fundamentalism
of,
undertones to it, but it's a really it's a.
It's a solid
you
statement.
get the concept of hey, you can be here, but be receptive instead of resistant. And watch what happens, because everything's really happening for you instead of to you. This is all for you right now. Trust. It's all for you. The present moment matters.
That's such a radical shift from how we are like culturally conditioned.
Right.
to
The
be-
opposite.
Yeah.
False empowerment constantly. Where's your true strength? In the present moment, period. If anybody tries to tell you love is anything except for the doorways right here in the present moment, they don't know what love is yet. And they're talking about some love that used to have at some point or some love they might have someday, a watered down version of, but it's always right here in the present moment. It's the only possible way you can access it.
And it's always there. It's never not there.
It's in abundance constantly.
Yeah.
If we're not feeling it, it's always us just being resistant instead of receptive.
I encourage that on a mass scale.
What we do is we do
Well,
surrender
really
lab.
good.
Every
Surrender
Monday
lab,
we go to
yeah.
Insight Night and we get between our thoughts. And on Wednesdays we show how to go edges and we show how to heal ourselves. And on Thursday we go COZSNUG because we show how together we're better. We enjoy life better when we do it together. So the three big huge pieces of vitality, abundance, and clarity, they're all covered there. We can have a well-rounded life by just doing those basic things, and it's really fun and effortless with your friends.
And the angle of therapy. All of those things, like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all of them are conducive to mental health.
That's why we call Surrender Lab beyond therapy, because when you come in, you're like, oh, wait, I just learned how to become my own therapist? Oh, wow, I just learned how to heal myself? Oh, wow, this is kind of cool. I just learned how to have a conversation with myself and then heal something? That's cool.
That's not always the case, though. Sometimes people really do need to go to therapy.
There's definitely a place for
I
somebody
know
else
to
to
not
talk
heal
to.
my own anger.
I'd love to
Like,
ask you.
there's no fucking
I'd
way.
love to ask you a question about that. Do you not feel like you can process those kinds of things with not necessarily this group, but your friends, your people closest to you?
It makes me angry.
It makes you angry.
I don't want you to tell me. I don't want my friend to tell me. I'd rather have a therapist tell me. Then I can't get mad at my therapist. I'm paying this person to tell me shit about myself. I'm not paying you to tell me shit about myself.
Creates the ability to see the objectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times
We-
when you are in that upset mind frame, and the people around you, that's what they're gonna get is the upset.
Yeah,
and
help
they're gonna
doesn't
come,
seem like help.
and then even if they come at you with some rational objective and they
Yeah,
maybe
hey,
take a
it's
step
just-
back,
Yeah.
then it
Hey,
just blows
don't-
up more.
Yeah, don't
Sometimes
tell me
But the
that.
model
Sometimes.
itself is got some clunky nature to it, and it's better than what we had before, because every single week we come up with constant new forms of psychotherapy that are all very effective. But the reason we call Surrender Lab Beyond Therapy is because the present moment always trumps everything. No matter what somebody ever says, their method is that they all work as long as you approach it from a standpoint of, I'm going to self-heal myself right now. I'm in a process of, I want this therapy session, no matter who it's with. If I paid and I transactionalized the whole thing and I went to a therapist, that's perfect, because now look what I can do for myself, and I get all this new information that changes my life. One session can be a life changer, right? Well, that's what we found out, is that every single present moment's a life changer as soon as you realize how powerful we really are.
That's a huge letting go.
It's surrender all the way.
Yeah,
First,
it's radical.
now I'm relatable. Until I've surrendered all the way, I'm not a relatable thing. I've just been lying to myself all this time. And I've been propping up my own false empowerment, and I act and I talk confidently and I talk braggadociously sometimes, but what I've done is I've mistaken confidence for arrogance. I don't know what the difference is yet in my head. I'm not mature enough to have the skill of knowing how to empower myself with true strength, internal promise, versus false empowerment, anything external. You know what? I got the best therapist ever. Sorry. I like the concept, and a lot of people want to go there, and it's perfect. It's going to be helpful. But what is the ultimate form of therapy? In my experience, it's letting go of everything right now. Let go. Let go of every single idea that you think is wrong, good or bad, every label, every attachment, every amount of clinging. Let go, let go, let go, let go. And if it's hard, because it's my brain's racing on all this stuff, go to your breath. Just start breathing through your nose. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And what happens is I engage the parasympathetic nervous system. I've now superseded, I've just transcended the need to have a fight or flight response. My body now is in total control of my awareness in the pilot seat, who just removed the ego from the pilot seat, put it into the co-pilot seat, buckled it in and said, now we're going to learn how to tame that inner critic. Because you're not relatable yet. It's okay to admit this to yourself, Ken. You're not relatable yet, even though you use relatable words and stuff. Relatability is going to come as soon as you're present. Now you're relatable. Now, what do we want our story to look like? I can ask any question that focuses on the new instead of anything old. Now I'm not focused on the past. I'm just enamored with what we have, all the potentiality that's here. Now how do we harness it? I have vision. Hey, you guys want to do something? Let's empower empathy across the planet. Doesn't that sound kind of cool? Got surrenderlab.com. Doesn't that sound kind of cool? We came from transactionalized relationships. Empathy.lol, because we've learned how to laugh at ourselves now. Badass.art comes right after that, because we need to have a way to fund ourselves. And doesn't every artist that wants to inspire the concept of inclusivity and relatability deserve to be on a platform where they can thrive? So now we have all these things that we put together just as our vision of what a better world could look like, and the impact that it's already had is way bigger than just a handful of us sitting around talking about it. We've already done so many things now that we all know about that have had massive impacts all over the planet. And so, well, we don't have to be doing this. And there's nothing right or wrong about it. But in my world of, if I want to do anything, and I get to do anything, and why do I wake up in the morning? Well, I want to wake up in the morning to inspire the concept of inclusivity, because I think it matters for the planet. I've already seen how much it's helped me in my life and the countless numbers of other people so far. So how could I possibly stop?
You've reached this point where you don't have a choice in it. I guess you could wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm over it.
I have a choice
I'm over it."
constantly. I
Right?
do, but I'm wanting to
but
make this choice.
But it feels like you can't, right? It's like when you, in your every present moment, that's the thing you're doing. Even when you do something that is counterintuitive on accident, because we all get wrapped up in our egos sometimes. I guess what I'm asking is, what do we do when anger is the appropriate response? What do we do when, like,
Well,
Wait,
what
I would stop that conversation and say, well, wait a second. The whole concept of appropriate is just something that you're forming from a belief system, right? That's appropriate or inappropriate. And so anger is a natural response that comes right on the line of after you just found out about something. Like when I found out about some things about my religion that I used to have, I was like, wait, if that's true, then that means I can't believe that thing. And that's the biggest part of the whole entire belief system. I was like,
I guess,
hurts.
yeah. Well, I guess I'm never going to eat walnuts because walnuts require violence in order to eat them. You know, so there's certain things that are just be off the table forever.
Well, I think that
Devil's
goes back to
advocate.
the definition of violence, because I'm not going to call opening up a walnut a violent thing. That walnut already did its thing, and it's already put itself to that point, and I already am going to eat it now. Now I'm going to open that thing up with a little bit of force and
Tough
some
love.
finesse and some intentionality, whatever intentionality I want. But I could open up that thing I could take 10 days to open it.
Unless
Yes,
I
to
could
a
open
point.
it up like that.
To a point.
Unless you mean the packaging of what's happening in other countries and how it's getting to
Yeah,
we
th-
get it.
this
Yeah,
isn't
they're
very
gonna be buying
violent,
get it.
but packaging it and what happened in order to get it in that bag
Yeah.
was
You
violent.
got it.
Well,
Yeah.
of course. So
And then
yes,
it's
now we're
being
acknowledging
transactionalized.
that's where the world is. Yeah, we're still violent. We still don't have collective trust. But is it worth talking about? Is it worth gaining more of? Is it worth actually pushing into it?
Definitely still economically violent.
Big time. Because we're transactionalizing relationships instead of relating. And it's all because we've been propping up false empowerment. Almost every company does it. Almost every organization does it. Almost every single government agency does it. Almost every single law enforcement
It's
agency
kind
does
of the
it.
basis
All the
of
NGOs do it.
advertising.
Yeah.
It's the basis of public. It's what my whole professional training was on. It's why I got so sick and tired of my own consumption. It's like I can't find any companies that want to say what their why is when I say, why do you exist? It's to transactionalize relationships. That's what it comes right down to.
If somebody invented something, it's a little box that you put on your coffee table and it powers your whole house. Nobody would get it if it was for free. Even if it was free to make and produce on a mass scale, like everybody get the free energy box. Most people would be like, fuck that, I don't believe it, that's nonsense. How much, it's free? Yeah, it's bullshit. You know, we live in this framework of capitalism where in order to get good tools and services out there, it has to come through these old, fucked up
been
channels.
indoctrinated
If you
our whole
underbid your
lives.
goods and services, people will think there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just trying to provide, I'm
too
not trying to,
trustworthy, yeah.
no thanks.
You know,
You don't want my help for
Okay.
free?
Really?
and it's funny that you bring that up because when I finally broke free from my sovereign citizen stuff, I just only maybe stopped a few years ago. I tried to provide for free to people, hey, this is the answer, this is the answer. And they did exactly what you did. I cannot count how many times I was called a government shill by those people. I really wish I was paid to waste my time with those people. That was some of the most frustrating time in my life because people don't want things for free. They think there's a catch. There's no catch.
We've been taught that if it's free, there's always a catch.
Yeah, exactly.
it's
Like
like,
Ken
oh.
said, we've been conditioned.
But we've been calling bullshit on it the whole time. We haven't charged for Surrender Lab. We don't charge for Empowering Empathy. We wrote a curriculum for the whole entire world. We're not going to charge to give it out to everybody. We're spending all of our time, spending so much sweat equity, just putting all this labor into this thing. Well, it's because it matters. It's a real cause. I'm attaching myself to a cause that's way bigger than me. It's all of us. I'm saying the cause seems to matter for every single person. These words, empowering empathy, seem to matter. That universal declaration of inclusivity seems to matter because look how it puts us past the immature, clunky status of still propping up self-sufficiency and individualism as if it's the Holy Grail. The most you'll ever suffer in your entire life, I promise, is when you feel the most individual, the most independent. Because you're acting like you're not actually having an impact on everybody else. You're acting like you're not actually connected to everybody else. Like you're not actually in this together. And you're not receiving those around you. You're just resisting them at some level.
And if you are receiving, it's by way of force and
Right.
taking.
Which is not receptive.
Or
because
or
I'm choosing
transactional. You know?
I'm choosing
Or
how to-
inclusive.
Or inclusive, yeah.
So if nature made us to where we're basically useless in nature because we have to make weapons to survive or else nature will kill us, if we've been formed in such that way and we come together in groups and call that group independent, is that necessarily...
I don't call this group independent for myself.
Well, they're codependent in the sense that they're each relying on each other to perfect their needs.
But that
I
whole
see it-
group
I
is
think
still
it's different than
completely
that as
part of
well.
the whole. You know, it needs its environment alone to survive, to even exist at all. So it's still, it's a relationship with everything else.
Interdependent is probably more proper than codependent.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
change
True.
all that terminology to begin with. I wouldn't even use the word dependent at all in there.
Well,
Because we're not dependent upon each other. As soon as we realize that we have, we're just more aware of our impact on each other. I'm not dependent on any of you.
Mhm.
I can receive you, but if I'm dependent on you, I want to resist that because I'm not dependent on shit. I want to grow up beyond my need for dependence on anything. So interdependence is, I think it was Covey's attempt to try to point a concept out about how we mature from dependency through codependency. I don't want to be a little codependent thing anymore. I want to be independent. This is where we were collectively a few hundred years back or whatever when we went through. We want to break away from the gang.
yeah. Well, where I was coming at is nature made us so we die if we don't come together. Like, that's a fact.
Yes.
We don't have claws, we don't have fangs, we don't have anything that can really protect us unless we come to, well, our reason. That's where
Yeah.
that's where we're different than all other creatures. And so where I'm coming from is, I agree with both of you 100% with like my whole heart. Where I'm coming from is, while we can come together and get rid of independence and we can call it whatever, we still have to acknowledge that we're all still a separate part of that collective whole.
Yes.
And so,
How do we respect that?
yeah,
Fully. It's to hear your whole story and to gain all your information from you. And until we have that in equanimity, we don't know what relating looks like us.
So we can't throw individualism out completely. It's still
You
just a
can't throw it out ever.
necessary component.
It was a really important part of my life. I had to gain that. It's part of my maturation process. I had to know what it was like to become an independent thing. Now, as soon as you're there, you have all kinds of lessons that you start learning because that ain't the end of the story.
Right.
And so we constantly get it increasingly easy for us as long as we want to let go of our violence inside. That's my experience. I now get to say, I'm not going to say that right now.
How do we make individuality secondary to collectivism? Because
This is a great question.
Well, he's got the logic to do it already. You know, we are created as social creatures. You know, with the need to be, communal in order to survive at the base level. And you get into individualism and the exploration of ego and the recognition that we are all individual, compartmentalized, schizophrenic versions of source self-discovering. We're all from the same consciousness. We're all the same entity that through longing for company, essentially, has decided, well, let's do it this way and populate this universe with all kinds of mass and matter, so that we can interact and explore and keep each other company and be, try to be good neighbors to each other and whatnot else. It's like you kind of have to recognize that individual component is where free will comes from. It is the gift that makes this whole thing unique and valuable. So we can't just throw it all out the window, but we have to recognize that the value of the community is how we make it to the next steps. Past, once you become a self-made person, well, what else? So you're gonna stack money and just become a billionaire hoarder like the rest of them? Or are you gonna break bread with your knowledge and your experience and bring people into a community and diversify from there?
And in bringing them into a community, the community basis there has to be some sort of common knowledge on what relating looks like. And we didn't have that yet collectively. It's just so simple. Because we don't have it collectively, we're not going to be doing it collectively.
I think we did, what's it called, an egregore, like an entity created by a group. So like in the egregore's its ability to conceptualize that idea, like
It gives us the
yes,
inspiration
right?
to show us how our world universe could be.
But I would like to
Can
get to a
you-
point
can
where
you turn the egregore into a tulpa?
I want to wake up in the morning and be like part of a thing instead of a cam. Or like some mornings it's like
Yes,
Cam. But
yes,
when that's the normal, when that's the operating system, I
Can
think
you start tomorrow morning and be...
I do it some mornings.
I'm just saying right now, I'm inviting you to be a part of this as much as you want to be, because all we're going to do is spread the concept of empathy all over the planet. And we need every single kind of possible help we can get right now.
I
I'm
know
wearing like
that does.
18
I'm good
hats,
at
he's wearing
contrast.
18 hats, she's wearing 18 hats. We're all trying to.
And where I'm coming and what I'm bringing is all my law shit, and what I shared with you, I wouldn't have shared it with you if I didn't think that you could come in on it. So that's with everybody that I've shared it with. If anybody's on that aspect, welcome to come and join in. And I want to try to, because I've been on my own for basically a decade with all of that. And so I need to learn how to blend that with that, or have that become part of the objective, or if that's fun, like,
How to integrate.
yes, like,
We don't have collective skills on relating yet.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
helps us gain some basic skills on communication, active listening. Here's how to listen to learn instead of listening to react. I don't listen to react, I listen to respond. Let me say it again. How about we listen to learn instead of listen to respond then?
I thought it was really
Learning to
interesting.
become a receptive thing. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I thought it was really interesting how you brought up, I want to be a part of a whole, not camp. But, I've thought a lot about that, I've thought a lot about, getting rid of the self in the sense of the single selfish thing. Is you think you're separate from the universe. But, that individual self that thinks it's separate is the fact it can even think it's separate is still a completely natural part of the whole that it is part of, and it only exists because of the whole already. So trying to push it away is just trying to push another part of the whole away.
It's like trying to
not
suppress a
honoring it.
reality that's really our reality. It's like Carl Jung talks about trying to suppress our shadow.
Be the most beautiful you can be.
Yeah, in the now.
Some days.
so,
Some days I do.
so, for you, would it be possible for your desire to come true that instead of not necessarily just being Cam, but identifying something else, if you came together with other people and we identify as this type of a,
Well, a part of it might be more along the lines of defining what a cam is.
Yeah. That I mean.
And if you're not actually quite there yet, because it's an idealized structure, it gives you a framework to fill in at least.
Yeah.
So that you can't, so that you are more, what would you say, synergistic with the community.
So in that realm, I've done much work. And recognizing that the camness is a concept.
Well, we
That
can tell.
I
We
just-
can tell, Cam. Obviously, we can tell.
Excellent.
But community's hard for me, y'all. It's been like a theme lately. It's been a theme since getting sober. Like, being in community is, I have to make myself go do it. Like this required effort. I'm like super enjoying my time. Not just today, but every time I'm together with y'all, it really inspires me to like, yes, it's a possible
We
thing.
love you.
Yeah, I definitely don't like missing these things.
Community's hard. I can like sit by myself and conceptualize community and collectivism, be like, yeah, I believe this. But like, go do it. I have to make myself go do it, bust myself out of the individualized experience. And it is I just thank you all
Thank
for
you
creating
for
this
doing
thing.
it, for being brave enough to do it,
Thank
and
you.
like all the effort that you put into getting all the way up here to do this, just to be with us. That's the same feeling we're having right now. Is thank you, because look at how an integral part of the conversation every single one of us is, no matter how individual we feel.
Since the first time I got up here, I felt like magnetized, drawn to it.
Nice.
And I'm moving here. It's wild.
I love it so much. That's just so magical. The second you told me, I was like, hell yes.
It's gonna be a change, y'all. It's not Salt Lake City. There's a lot more to do there. That's why I think finding community is that much more important now.
Yeah.
Like it's like not just like, oh, I should be doing this. Now it's like we have to do this to survive because we don't have claws and shit. Community is how we do it. So I don't know.
Thank you, Cam.
We're like way over our normal time.
Are we?
Does anyone have any notes on this beautiful conversation?
Paradox came up a few times, and a little bit of thought. And I think the only thing that paradox is the opportunity to place your own, pick which side you want to
Place of meaning.
proliferate and get behind.
Let's
The
both end
paradoxes-
everything.
The paradoxes are the free will points of interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well said. I like this
Okay, yeah.
link. It's potentiality being shown to you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming to COZSNUG.
Thank you.
Really,
Thanks for-
Yeah,
thanks
this
for
is a
keeping
beautiful
it on.
conversation.
Thank
Like,
you
wow,
for
thank
everybody
you, thank
here.
you.
This
They
is
really
amazing.
thank you. Like, there's a lot of data that just got spread around between all of us. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, this will be one I promote to people.
Yeah.
Look up 7-6.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. All right, we love you guys.
Love you guys. Have a good night.
We